This man is dressed as a polar bear in this fake zoo, and when no visitors are watching, he picks up the Coke thrown by the visitors and starts drinking it. But then a couple makes a video of it which is going to go viral, and will this reveal the reality of this fake zoo? It all starts when Hwang invites Tae-soo for dinner. Tae-soo recently lost his job. He meets Rokwon Group's vice president and Hyun's sister, Min Chae-ryung. After Ryung leaves, Hwang gets to know more about Tae-soo. Hwang promises to give Tae-soo a permanent position at JH Company if he manages to revitalize a failing zoo called Dongsan Park that one of JH's UK-based clients, Gabrielle Inc., has acquired. Tae-soo couldn't be more excited and accepts the deal immediately. However, Hwang gives him an ultimatum and says that he has exactly 3 months to revitalize the failing zoo. In the next scene, Tae-soo quickly heads over to the zoo, and lo and behold, he learns that the zoo has no animals except for a troubled polar bear and some other animals that no one would pay to see. Tae-soo talks to the remaining zoo staff, and they reveal that the zoo's animals have been taken away by the loan sharks that the zoo's previous owners owed money to. The zoo staff consists of former director Seo, veterinarian Han, Hye-kyung, and Gunwook. After learning that Tae-soo is the new director of the zoo, Seo proceeds to leave, but Tae-soo convinces him to stay, saying his experience will be needed to bring this zoo back to life. Tae-soo proposes buying animals, but he is told that one can't buy endangered animals. They could seek special permission for research and breeding from the government, but it could take well over 3 months. Later that night, while returning back to his living quarters inside the zoo, Tae-soo is given a scare of a lifetime by a stuffed animal which he mistakes for a real tiger. One of the laid-off zoo staff reveals that he is taking the stuffed toy to sell it for some money. The next morning, Tae-soo relays his problem to Hwang, but the latter tells Tae-soo to return back if he can't make it work. Realizing that he may no longer have a future at the company if he fails to deliver, Tae-soo promises to make it work at any cost. Tae-soo then notices pictures of the zoo's annual soft toy contest on the wall, and suddenly, an idea strikes him. He proposes the idea of having the zookeepers dress up as animals. He stresses that people won't be able to tell the difference between a realistic animal costume and an animal from a certain distance. The zoo staff quickly get on board in the name of saving the zoo, but Han refuses to partake in the foolishness. However, Tae-soo plays with Han's heartstrings by bringing up the story of her becoming a vet because of the zoo's polar bear black nose, eventually persuading her. Tae-soo then contracts a Hollywood costume designer to design a realistic lion, gorilla, sloth, and polar bear costume. Within 2 weeks, they receive the costumes and Seo suggests hiring actors for the job, but Tae-soo turns down the suggestion, saying their secret could get out. Left with no choice, Han, Hye-kyung, Gunwook, and Seo become the lion, sloth, gorilla, and polar bear respectively, and the rehearsals begin. Soon, the zoo's gates are open to the public, and it receives groups of kindergarten kids and senior citizens. The zoo staff initially struggle, but eventually get the hang of their new job, managing to fool the visitors. Their effort manages to attract 75 visitors in a week, but the numbers are not enough to keep the zoo open, so Tae-soo insists on getting a giraffe to lure more visitors. Meanwhile, Hye-kyung's boyfriend Sung-min dumps her after wasting 5 years worth of her savings on a convenience store near the zoo. Seeing Hye-kyung crying, Gunwook storms into the store wearing the gorilla costume and destroys it. Sung-min reports the gorilla to the police, but he is brushed aside as a lunatic. The next day, Sung-min shows up at the zoo, where Gunwook again attacks him as a gorilla, exposing their secret in the process. After learning about Tae-soo's scam, Sung-min threatens to report them to the police, but Hye-kyung convinces him against it and asks Gunwook to apologize to him. Later that night, Tae-soo visits his costume designer, but to his dismay, he learns that he has taken off with the deposit, leaving behind only the head of the giraffe in the warehouse. However, Tae-soo refuses to give up, and he uses the head of the giraffe to trick his visitors. Soon, Seo falls sick from sitting out in the sun in the hot costume, so Tae-soo takes over his role. He quickly learns that cosplaying an animal at a zoo isn't an easy job, as some unruly visitors keep throwing stuff at him. Tae-soo also gets tired of sitting in the sun, and when no one's looking, he grabs a Coca-Cola bottle thrown by one of the visitors inside the pit and drinks it to quench his thirst. However, some visitors manage to capture Tae-soo gulping down the Coca-Cola bottle. That day, a representative from JH arrives at the zoo and reveals that Tae-soo's request for animal purchase has been approved. After giving him a tour of the zoo, Tae-soo manages to send the rep off. That night, Tae-soo gets a call from Song, who tells him about his plans to visit the zoo with his kids. After seeing JH spending so much money and effort to keep the zoo up and running, Tae-soo asks Song about Gabriel, and Song reveals that Gabriel is Huang's own shell company that he uses to manage his slush fund, much to Taesu's astonishment. The next day, a crowd of people show up at the zoo, and Taesu learns that his polar bear has gone viral after the video of the polar bear drinking Coke hit the internet. Taesu and his team couldn't be more excited, and thanks to the polar bear, the zoo becomes a massive hit. Hundreds of people flock to the zoo every day to see the bear drinking Coke, and over the weekend, the zoo makes a massive profit of $100,000. One day, Gun-wook finds Haekyung despairing by herself and talks to her. She is still reeling from her breakup, and Gun-wook offers to take her out on dinner. Meanwhile, Taesu notices Black Nose roaming outside in the pit. He then finds Han watching an old childhood video of Black Nose by herself. She reveals that she let Black Nose out of the cage so he could get some fresh air. The two then talk about Black Nose's worsening behavior. She says that no matter how spacious the zoo is, it is still a cement cage for the polar bear. She reveals that she once had an opportunity to send the animal to Canada, where it could live in the wild, but she decided to keep it around, hoping that if she did her best, it would get better. She laments her decision and thanks Taesu for saving the zoo before parting ways. The next day, Hwang offers Taesu a permanent position at JH. Taesu is ecstatic at the news, but his happiness soon turns into disappointment when Hwang reveals his plans to bulldoze the zoo and build a resort. Rokwon Group had purchased over 25 million square feet of land around the zoo, and they also wanted to buy the zoo itself, but Hwang's shell company Gabriel swooped in and bought it up. Hwang then ordered Taesu to revitalize the zoo, so Gabriel could sell the land to Rokwon Group at a much higher price. Taesu tries to convince Hwang against selling the zoo, but Hwang dismisses him. Dejected, Taesu returns to the zoo to deliver the bad news, but he is surprised by Han and others with a success party. Former employees of the zoo also join the party and thank Taesu for giving them their livelihood back. Seeing them so happy, Taesu can't bring himself to break the bad news. However, a former employee of the zoo from earlier in the movie arrives and reveals Rokwon's plans to build a resort on top of the zoo. Taesu confirms the news, and the former employees leave disappointed. Han and others feel cheated by Taesu and refuse to hear him out. Left with no choice, Taesu returns to his new job in Seoul and gets on with his life. However, he still regrets what's happening to the zoo. When the Rokwon Group's team arrives to demolish the zoo, Seo gets into an altercation with the company staff and injures himself in the process. The zoo staff reunite in the hospital, and Han proposes a solution. She suggests opening the zoo and putting Rokwon on blast publicly for trying to demolish it. The public campaign works, and the media and environmental activists get all over Rokwon like a bad rash. The development enrages Rokwon's vice president Ryung, and Hwang promises to remove the miscreant employees from the zoo premises. However, it fails to calm Ryung down as her attempts to revamp the image of the company have tanked badly. Hwang promises to resolve the problem as soon as possible and leaves. Hwang is later visited by Hee-kyung's ex-boyfriend Sung Min, who tells the CEO the truth about the fake zoo animals. Taesu notices Sung Min leaving Hwang's office and figures out that he has ratted them out. Hwang and his assistant immediately leave for the zoo, and they are closely followed by Taesu. Before Hwang gets to expose them, Taesu alerts Han and others about the development. Han stops Hwang from going into the room where the polar bear is kept. Shortly afterwards, Taesu joins them, and Hwang warns him to tell him the truth about the zoo animals, but Taesu continues to feign ignorance. Enraged, Hwang forces his way into the room and finds Black Nose sleeping. Mistaking the bear for a fake one, Hwang challenges the animal, almost getting himself killed in the process. To calm Black Nose, Han lets him into the pit while Hwang proceeds to leave. However, Hwang returns to check the polar bear again when he becomes certain that the giraffe is fake. Hwang gets into the pit with Black Nose and challenges him again. Black Nose attacks him, and Hwang passes out. To save his boss, Taesu puts on the polar bear suit and lures Black Nose away from Hwang. It works and Hwang is brought back to safety, but at the expense of Taesu, who is attacked by the bear. The angry bear tears Taesu's suit open, exposing him, but fortunately, Taesu manages to run to safety just in time.